Hey, it's Rob from JTech, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about vehicle dynamics, go over the similarities and what you are, physically actually looking at when you talk about your vehicle dynamics, how it affects your vehicle. First of all, this vehicle dynamics is the study on how your vehicle moves, such as how it's moving down the road or up a hill, stuff like that. Go over a couple, in between sections of the principles of vehicle dynamics, such as, your aerodynamic influences, your geometric influences, mass influence, motion influences, tire influences, and road influences, how they all affect the way your vehicle moves. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is your aerodynamic influences, and what I'm talking about is your front downforce and your rear downforce, your lift and your drag on your vehicle as you're literally driving down the road, and how the air moves around it, and over it, under it, through it, versus the way most people think. Now, your front downforce is literally what it sounds like. It's literally the downforce of the wind pressing down and on your front end of your vehicle, and the same as the rear downforce. It's once the air goes over the roof of your vehicle, it causes a little spiral of wind, if you want to call it that way, and it literally presses down on the rear of your vehicle. Your lift is where points of your vehicle where there's less pressure, it's literally trying to lift off the ground, and then your drag is what is after the vehicle. So those are a little bit of your aerodynamic features of the vehicle dynamics. Next, I'll move on to your geometric, such as your caster, your camber, your toe out, your truss angle, and your toe in and tire scrubs. Now, this is a big part of how your vehicle moves. Of course, if you got caster or camber, your toe is way out or way in, it's going to have effects on how your vehicle literally drives down the road. You're going to literally feel a pull, whether to the left or the right, or it's going to drift to the left or the right. And a little bit later, and when it comes to road influences, we'll talk about crown of the road, but that also has an effect on your alignment, which is a big part of vehicle dynamics. Your caster being in and out is how your tire would move forward and backwards. That's your caster. Your camber is leaning in and out, and then toe is your whole tire moving in and out. Your truss angle, example of your truss angle is kind of like when you see a puppy running down the road, and he's running with his paws. His front paws are straight ahead of him, but his butt's off to one side. Or you see a truck where you're driving behind it, and it kind of looks like it's been in an accident. It's crooked. That's an example of an extreme truss angle on a vehicle. You can adjust them. They're hard. It's not that hard, but most of the time it's due to like frame damage or something like that. Tire scrubs, of course, that is the center point of your tire. When you're turning, you'll be able to see if your center point lines up with the center point of your truss angle, and see how bad that's off by looking at literally the rings on the tread of your tire. Next, I'll talk about your mass. You got your center mass, your roll center plane, your center mass empty, and your center mass loaded. Let's go ahead and go with your center mass. Your center mass is the most balanced point in your vehicle, which means if you put it on, let's say, like a pyramid, and you put it right at the tip of that pyramid was where your center mass was, your vehicle should balance out and literally not drift up or down on one way. Your roll center plane is your rollover point. Your center mass empty and your center mass loaded. Now, of course, your center of mass is going to change when you got an empty vehicle versus a loaded vehicle. Example, a van, a work van like your F-350. You have stuff loaded in there. Your center mass is going to be towards the back more towards the middle of the vehicle to make it to where it is leaned in or balanced out. The next thing I'll talk about is your motion. You're talking about your pitch, your yaw, and your roll. Not too many people are familiar of what that means. And your pitch is literally how your vehicle wants to roll forward. Your yaw is literally how it wants to kind of twist, and your roll is, of course, exactly what it's talking about. And last, well, not last, next I'll talk about a little bit about your tires and your tire and your wheel run out. What that's talking about is your lateral and your radial run out. Now, lateral, of course, is your tires shaking just like this, back and forth, back and forth. And of course, if you have a lateral run out on your wheel or your tire, you're definitely going to feel that in your vehicle, and it's definitely going to make your drive a little bit more uncomfortable. Your radial is your tire going up and down, maybe like a bounce, or from it being chopped or feathered or anything like that. And that normally comes, your lateral normally comes from maybe ball joint movement, bearing play, stuff like that. And then your radial movement comes from, you know, your suspension being bad, such as your shocks or your struts being shot or blown. So if you feel that in your vehicle, you definitely want to check out those things. The last thing I'm going to talk about, like I said, is your road influences. Now, generally when you're driving down the road, you really can't do much about it, but you want to make sure you try to stay on the most level path. If you are driving somewhere such as Beach Boulevard, you're not going to have much of a crown in the road, so your car should generally drive straight as long as your alignment and everything's in specs. But let's say you're driving down, you know, 295 or 95 and you're going out of state, you're going to have a really big crown on the road. And what the crown's for is for drainage of water on the road or debris. It drains off normally to the right. So if you really could look at it, literally you got your road and it would lean kind of like this, how my hand is canted to the right on both hands. So I mean, if you're normally driving on Beach Boulevard and someone was going to set your alignment, you wouldn't want to compensate for the crown of the road. But if you're driving down 295, 95 all the time, then maybe I would on your right side have your caster up a little bit more than your left side. That way it wouldn't want to follow the drift of the crown of the road. It would want to push against it, so you would stay straight versus drifting off the road, of course. But all in all, that's a little bit about vehicle dynamics, and thank you for your time. This is Rob.